Just me today, Mike, and everybody else. Also, we have an editor named Mike. He does these lives. Not me. My name is Mike. This is not me talking to you.
I don't understand why you're
What's up, Watch fam? It is Michael, and I'm alone today. Christian is not here. We've been very, very busy with a lot of projects that we haven't posted yet, and we figured the best course of action would be if Christian took a vacation, just so we could both relax and calm down. Just kidding, Christian would never ask me for my opinion. Just kidding again! We're both doing something. I don't really know what Christian's doing right now, but I have a very big trip coming up on March 31st, so we're just taking our time and stuff like that. Anyway, so today, the most important thing of this video is probably the subject, and the subject of it is alternatives to Rolex, which you've probably seen 1,000 times, but I think this is hopefully a different angle. I tried to think about it in terms of different areas of a Rolex that you might want an alternative to, not specifically an alternative to an Explorer or an alternative to a Submariner or anything like that. So let's see how it goes. Also, before we get into that, we are changing the way we're doing our lives. So very sorry with bombarding you with 40-minute videos twice a week or 3 times a week. That's a lot. If you're not on YouTube, you have to kind of play with the format sometimes to see what works and what doesn't. But 40 minutes 2 times a week is asking 80 minutes of your time a week, which is a ton. So what we're doing, and then we'll get to the subject, is we are splitting up one 40-minute video into 2 pieces that we will post on one day of the week and then another day of the week. And then probably in the middle of the week, we will do the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and everything like that. So hopefully that goes well. Anyways, this is live V2, so things are cut down. They'll be more concise, although this is proving it wrong immediately. And we will not babble about everything, including sponsors. We will tell you about sponsors, but not babble the entire time because nobody wants that. But today's video is sponsored by Friedrik. They make some of the best briefcases that you can get, and coincidentally, they come in at great prices. So Vachetta leather that you see from bigger brands like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, stuff like that, they make those types of bags for far less, but more on that later. Let's get into it. Before we do, though, I have a Grand Seiko Omiwatari on my wrist, 38 millimeters manual wind spring drive, very beautiful case, and you can see all this. There's a ton of texture on the case, and Omiwatari is, I think, the ice guards marching through the snow. Another thing is, on its way to me right now, is a JLC Reverso Grand Tie. I'm very excited about it. Just silver, not gold or anything crazy fancy, but could not be more excited to get that watch. I'll show it to you right away, or I'll probably forget and wear it on a live or something like that. But without further ado, people love to hate Rolex. Everybody loves to hate Rolex. It's a very popular thing to do. I saw a video posted by Jenny L that says, watch this video if you hate Rolex, and it has like 197,000 views. And I found out by titling things that aren't very positive to Rolex, people will watch it. So there's a lot of anger behind the scenes, deep in the crevasses of YouTube with Rolex, but credit where credit is due. Rolex is the thing that you can't get with Rolex anywhere else, is a combination of brand name, like popularity of the name, everybody knows what Rolex is, sports watch, and then specific styles. You can get all 3 on their own, but not together. So I'll do just some alternatives first, and then I'll do the bigger kind of theory or thoughts I have on how to get something with the same worldwide, like, I don't know the right word, worldwide, everybody knows what it is, because it's not what you typically think. It's tough to do that with a watch brand, so there are some brands that I think cross that line of still very respected watches, or kind of respected in some cases, I won't point them out specifically, and brand name, recognizability. What is that word? The easiest thing is probably an alternative to the Rolex Explorer, and the direct alternative to the Rolex Explorer is from Tudor. It's the Tudor Black Bay 36, 41, or 32, depending on your wrist size. This is, if you look at this watch next to the Rolex Explorer, this is, I feel like, as close as Tudor and Rolex would ever get to making the same watch. That's a good point in your watch collecting time to look at 2 watches. One is pretty accessible, the other one is not really accessible. That's a good chance for you to say, do I care about the style and features of the watch, or do I care about the logo on it? Which is not a bad thing, because I care about the logo a ton. Even if I don't want to, I'm just like, wow, I want my watch to be recognized by people, and I want them to tell me wow, you have that watch, that makes me think of you all the time. You're absolutely like, you're so much better than me. That's really my goal at the end of the day. But looking at the Tudor Black Bay 36, this is essentially a perfect watch. And it's essentially a perfect watch because it's based off of the Rolex Explorer, which is a perfect watch. So you have snowflake hands. It's a little different stylistically, but you have the water resistance, you have the case shape, you have the great size. Everything that you could ever want is there. Also in the same really style exactly is the Longines Conquest Automatic. What you do have here though is a 300 meter water resistance, that's diver level, baby. Not that you should dive with that watch, but that watch can definitely stand up to anything that you do. And as we've said in the past, Longines has a really cool heritage around it anyways. So if brand name really doesn't matter and you want to jump away from Rolex and Tudor, Longines is a great bet. And now, of course, there's anything from Oris. There is just myriad other brands. Hamilton, Seiko, Grand Seiko, Seiko's Prospects line. There's Tissot. I could just keep going in this like mumbly switching brand speak forever because there's so many different companies that deliver exactly that. I always suggest though, like if you are going for an alternative, make sure that it's an alternative and not an homage, just because I feel like after a certain amount of time, it's annoying to have something that's very, very, very close. If it's pretty close, that's great. But if you look at like a Steinhardt watch, for example, a Steinhardt Submariner homage, that's a great watch. Very functional, perfectly, totally fine. But it's going to get annoying if you really wanted a Submariner and everybody thinks it's a Submariner, or you look at it as a discount Submariner. I feel like you still want to have a lot of residual pride behind your watch. So I suggest going something with its own style. Also, really quick interjection before the end of this video. There is one watch I want to show you that I've always loved, and I don't think I'm going to get one anytime soon, but I just want to call it out just because it's one of the funkiest watches ever. It has good water resistance. It's an okay movement. It's not anything special, but the design of it is beautiful. So I'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so before we get into the importance of brand name, there is one more watch that is really, I feel like, much strayed from the pack in what I've been talking about, and that is the Bernhardt Binnacle. Bernhardt is a very affordable brand. It's based in America, and Fred Bernhardt Amos just passed away, so that's kind of sad to see. That's actually someone I talked to a very long time ago. I was making a movie and I was trying to get everybody on the cast a custom Bernhardt watch with like the logo of the film and the dial color and change and all that stuff. But whatever. So it's very weird to see that he passed away. Very sorry to hear that. He had a huge impact on the company. I believe he started the company. But they're great watches, super cheap. They go for $379 for the Binnacle Anchor 3, which is essentially like a mix of an Explorer and a Milgauss, and it comes in a great case shape. So definitely check those out if you're just looking for like a beater cheap watch that you want to wear every day that has a pretty solid style. So that's one thing. But now the biggest conversation of this video is the brand name fiasco. Because like I said, the biggest deal, it's not that you can't get a Rolex because you want the water resistance or because you want a black lacquer dial or you want a 369 dial or something like that, because you can get that everywhere else. You want a Rolex because it has all of those features and because it's a Rolex. It's something that there's just so much pride and history around the Rolex name. And there's that graph that if you're into watches, you've probably seen it a million times. That's like, when you don't know anything about watches, you love Rolex. Then you learn a little bit about watches and you hate Rolex and it's the worst brand. It's overused and overdone, whatever. And then as you get more into the world of watches, your appreciation starts to go back up. Here's my thoughts. I'm going to exclude Patek, AP, and Omega because those are all huge brands. I'm pretty sure most people are going to know those three brand names, especially because now they're in a lot of popular culture. They're in a lot of music. So, well, Omega's not, but Patek and AP, definitely, those are probably your best bet, but then it's kind of out of the realm of an alternative to a Rolex. It's just something else on a grander scale. I was thinking if I gifted a Rolex to a non-watch loving person, they'd be like, oh my God, that's a Rolex? And I'd say, yes, of course, that's what it is. And they'd freak out. But when I was thinking of all those people that wouldn't recognize the brand names, if I even said Omega, which is massive, which most people would, but you know what I mean. I thought everybody I know would recognize Cartier. If I gave them a Cartier watch, they would know, oh my God, this is a Cartier watch. They're, the king of jewelers, or the jeweler of kings, the king of jewelers, something like that. And Tiffany, which Tiffany's not, when it comes to pristine watchmaking, Tiffany has some very cool watches. They aren't recognized a ton for their watches, but they do make some very visually gorgeous watches. So I figured I would give a few a shout out, and then we'll end the, well, I'll tell you about the last watch, then we'll end the video. But real quick, before I give those a shout out, today's video is sponsored by Friedrik. So real quick word on that. Today we're looking at the carry-on suitcase, which is an incredible product with a lifetime warranty and a 100-day trial. Because picking your luggage out is no joke. But this is a hybrid suitcase, so it is a polycarbonate and aluminum crossing, which is really great because you get the benefits of both. So polycarbonate, lighter weight, and it's a bit more flexible, so you can overstuff the suitcase a little bit and you don't have to worry about it just physically not closing. And then you get the added strength and structure through the aluminum. And also, this is a locking frame with TSA compliant locks, so no freaks on the airline are going to try and get in there and look at all your stuff. So that's great. And of course, this being Friedrik, it is trimmed in their Vachetta leather, which is some of the nicest leather you can get in the world. And if you thought, well, what about the wheels? How are the wheels? Are the wheels good? I need good wheels on my suitcase. Yes, they are. These wheels come from Hinomoto, which Friedrik themselves says, silent Japanese spinner wheels, offering 360 maneuverability without any unwanted noise. The gold standard brand in wheel manufacturing, Hinomoto. So that's pretty cool, something I don't usually think about. They did. This is a beautiful suitcase, no lie. If you are in the market for a suitcase that is lightweight but tough, Friedrik's definitely something to look at, and I highly recommend that you do. So anyways, thank you so much to Friedrik for sponsoring this video. They did sponsor a video where we talked about the Palace briefcase, and that is aging beautifully. So we will give you an update on that soon. But anyways, back to the video. Wow. See? Nice and efficient. Just like I said, we're very efficient now. But going into Cartier first, the easiest one obviously is the tank, and well, the must tank specifically. You can go very expensive, but this tank is under $5,000. It's beautiful. It is Cartier's essential tank, their must-have tank. It's not anything crazy fancy, quartz movement, but if you just want a cool watch, that's kind of the move. Obviously, manual wind is always preferred, but with Cartier, they're really the only people in the watch world that kind of get a pass for quartz, because the whole basis of the tank is it's the watch that you don't even need to wind because it's so beautiful. So there's that. There's the Solar Beat, which are both great. But then there is, of course, the Santos. Specifically, the medium Santos, just for my wrist size. There's also a large Santos. But the Santos is actually very, very, very good as a daily wear watch. If you check out a review by You're Terrific, who is a great YouTuber. He has such aesthetically pleasing videos. They're so good. He reviewed his Cartier Santos, and it's beautiful. Although he did bring up a good point that the biggest issue with the Santos is that it's polished so finely and so beautifully that you do basically get a second job when wearing the watch to prevent it from getting scratched, because that's really the highlight of the watch. But this is an actual you could probably wear every day if you don't mind scratching it watch, and it has 100 meters water resistance. So that's a really great alternative for a sporty watch that you can wear every day that people will also recognize if you say the brand. Then we hop over to Tiffany, and Tiffany has a range of watches. Obviously, everybody has a range of watches, but there's the Tiffany Maker's 27mm square watch, which is very beautiful. It has an exposed movement on the back, which is also very beautiful. This is not an everyday watch unless you want to wear a dress watch every day, but it is very beautiful, and there's one in rose gold, which is stunning. That's a bit out of the price range. You could just get a Rolex secondhand for that money, so sticking to the base model of that, absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, there is the East-West automatic watch, which is, it's kind of a toss-up between the Makers and the East-West automatic for me, because I love the simple square design. I love square and rectangular watches. That's why I'm getting the Reverso. But the cool thing about the East-West is that it is made to sit sideways on your wrist. So you have the 12 kind of pointing towards your knuckles instead of, you know, to whatever your arm is facing. But the reason for that is when you have the 12 pointing at your knuckles and you're holding on to something, you'll be able to see everything right side up. So that's very, very cool. I think it's a beautiful design. And I think that's a nice choice for Tiffany to do to set them apart immediately to make a drive watch. Which also reminds me, back to Bernhardt real quick. They have a very fascinating collaboration with Lejour. I'm not quite sure how you say that, but what's fascinating about it is that this is actually also a play on a drive watch. They didn't tilt the actual dial itself, so it's not a drive watch, but you see how the crown is kind of in the 130 position? Typically, the actual dial would be that way too, so when you're driving, it's right side up again. Really cool. That one's a bit more expensive at $800, but for what you get, I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so before we get into the last watch, let me know what you think about that, because I think jewelry companies, if you just want the eyes and you don't want to go Hublot, I don't even know if Hublot is going to be recognized. I think Tiffany and Cartier are probably the two biggest players that you can go for. To non-watch nerds, obviously a watch nerd is going to recognize if you have a piece of dirt on your wrist. It doesn't matter. This is just to the general public who sees movement watches and can't tell you if that is from J.J. Lecoultre or if it's from someone else. So that's what I think. Definitely let me know what you think. So the last watch that I want to talk about very, very quickly, it's one that I've talked about briefly before. Christian and I have talked about, and it's from Bulgari. It's not the Octo Finissimo, although that's a beautiful watch. It is the Bulgari aluminum watch, specifically the GMT. I'm just looking at it right now. It is gorgeous. It's not this incredible, crazy, beautiful feat of watchmaking, but the design is pretty historic. And I think the design is pretty loud. I think it's beautiful. 40 millimeter case, 100 meters water resistance, and it's made out of aluminum and titanium, or aluminum titanium. It says it's one material. I think that's a beautiful watch. It comes with a chronograph, or comes in a chronograph function as well, and a time only. I just think it's a lovely looking watch, very avant-garde comparatively to everything else, and beautiful. A little branded, obviously, when you look at the bezel, but I just figured I would mention that real quick as just a random watch that I think is cool. But anyways, that is about it. I will see you all next week with Christian. This is not a two-part version. The next one, starting with Christian, is when the podcast and the 2 parts and all that stuff starts. So I'll see you then. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.